My name is Hortense, and I'm 32 years old. Pregnancy should be the most joyful time in a woman's life, but my mother-in-law, Judith, turned it into a nightmare. When the doctor revealed we were having a girl, the look of disgust on Judith's face burned into my memory. "You're just a surrogate," she sneered when she thought I couldn't hear. Those 5 words shattered something inside me, but they also ignited a strength I never knew I had. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever had to stand up to toxic family members, hit that subscribe button and join me as I share how I finally found my voice and demanded respect for myself and my daughter. Michael and I met at a regional teachers conference 6 years ago. I was presenting a workshop on creative reading strategies for elementary students, and he was there representing his high school history department. He caught my eye immediately. Tall with kind brown eyes and a genuine smile that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. During the lunch break, he approached me with thoughtful questions about my presentation, and we ended up talking long after everyone else had returned to their sessions. "I think we just got each other in trouble." He laughed as we realized we were both 30 minutes late returning from lunch. We exchanged numbers, and he called me that very night. Our courtship was the kind you dream about. Michael was thoughtful, intelligent, and shared my passion for education. We spent weekends hiking through state parks, discussing our favorite books, and dreaming about our future. He talked about wanting a big family, and I shared my hopes of having at least 2 or 3 children. We seemed perfectly aligned in our values and vision for life together. After 8 months of dating, Michael proposed during a sunrise hike to our favorite overlook. I said yes without hesitation. That's when he first mentioned the importance of family in the Cunningham lineage. "My parents are going to be thrilled," he said as he slipped the ring on my finger, "especially my mother. She's been waiting for the next generation of Cunninghams." I didn't think much of it at the time. Most parents look forward to grandchildren, right? I had no idea that this simple statement foreshadowed the difficulties to come. When I met Michael's parents for the first time, I was struck by the contrast between them. Robert Cunningham was reserved but kind, with the same crinkly-eyed smile as his son. He asked thoughtful questions about my teaching career and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. Judith, however, was a different story entirely. Tall, immaculately dressed, with perfectly coiffed silver hair, she assessed me with critical eyes the moment I walked through the door of their sprawling colonial home. "So you're an elementary school teacher," she said, making it sound like I'd admitted to being a street performer. "From the public school system, no less. How dedicated of you." Michael squeezed my hand reassuringly. "Hortense is Teacher of the Year in her district, Mum. The kids and parents love her." Judith's smile never reached her eyes. "Well, I suppose someone needs to teach the basics?" Though I always hoped Michael would find someone with a more substantial career. The Cunningham women have traditionally been accomplished in their own right. That first dinner set the tone for our relationship. I learned that the Cunninghams were old money, not extremely wealthy, but comfortable enough to maintain certain expectations about social standing. Judith herself came from an even more prestigious family and had married down to Robert, a fact she subtly referenced throughout the evening. Most concerning was her preoccupation with the Cunningham family legacy. Over dessert, she brought out a massive leather-bound family tree, tracing their lineage back to the early 1800s. The Cunningham name has been carried unbroken through the male line for 7 generations, she explained proudly, pointing to the intricate branches. Every Cunningham son has produced at least one male heir. It's quite remarkable statistically speaking. Mum is our family historian, Michael explained later as we drove home. She's just proud of our heritage. Don't take it personally. I tried not to. But as wedding planning began, Judith's controlling nature became impossible to ignore. She had opinions on everything from my dress, "Something slimming would be best for your figure, dear," to the guest list. "Do we really need to invite all those teacher friends?" She insisted on traditional vows, classic music, and formal attire. When I suggested incorporating some of my family's Cajun traditions, she dismissed them as quaint but inappropriate for a Cunningham wedding. Michael played peacemaker, finding compromises where possible and reassuring me when I felt overwhelmed. "She'll settle down once we're married," he promised. "She's just struggling with the idea of her only son growing up." Our wedding day was beautiful despite the tensions. My parents, warm and loving people who had raised me to value kindness above all else, did their best to connect with the Cunninghams. My father, a retired firefighter with a booming laugh, tried repeatedly to engage Robert in conversation. My mother, who taught piano lessons from our modest home, brought homemade pralines as a peace offering to Judith, who accepted them with a tight smile and later discreetly discarded them. The first years of our marriage were mostly happy. Michael and I bought a charming craftsman-style home halfway between our respective schools. We established our own traditions, travelled during summer breaks, and built a circle of friends who shared our values. Judith's interference was limited to holiday gatherings and occasional Sunday dinners, which we could manage in small doses. After 3 years of building our life together, we decided we were ready to start a family. "Let's make a baby," Michael whispered one night, and my heart swelled with joy. We both wanted children so badly, and the timing felt right. Getting pregnant took longer than we expected. 6 months of careful tracking, hopeful 2-week waits, and mounting disappointment. When that second line finally appeared on the test, I broke down in tears of relief and excitement. Michael lifted me off the ground and spun me around our bathroom, both of us laughing and crying at the same time. "We're going to be parents," he kept saying in awe. "I'm going to be a dad." We agreed to wait until after the first trimester to share our news. Those early weeks were precious. Just the two of us savouring our secret, Michael bringing me ginger ale for morning sickness, both of us whispering to my still flat stomach at night. It was the happiest time of my life. If only it could have stayed that way. The first sign that Judith would be a problem came when we announced the pregnancy at a family dinner. While my parents reacted with unbridled joy, hugging us both and immediately offering their support, Judith's response was oddly calculated. "When are you due?" she asked, pulling out her phone to check her calendar. "Mid-June," I replied, still flushed with excitement. "Perfect timing for a Cunningham." She nodded approvingly. "The men in this family have always been summer babies. Strong stock." She turned to Michael. "Your great-grandfather, grandfather, and you were all born in summer months. The timing bodes well for a boy." I exchanged glances with Michael, who shrugged almost imperceptibly. I decided to let the comment slide, not wanting to dampen our announcement. Over the next few weeks, Judith's fixation on the baby's gender became increasingly obvious. She called almost daily with questions about my symptoms. "Are you carrying low or high?" she asked during one call. "I'm only 12 weeks, Judith. I'm not really showing yet." When you do start showing low means, boy high means girl. The Cunningham women always carry their boys low. And have you had morning sickness? Some, yes. That's concerning. Morning sickness is more common with girls, but perhaps it's from your side of the family. Do the women in your family typically have severe morning sickness? These conversations became a regular occurrence. Every symptom, every craving, every change in my body became evidence in Judith's ongoing investigation into the gender of our baby. When I mentioned craving salty foods, she was delighted. Classic boy craving. When my skin broke out, she frowned. Hormonal changes like that often indicate a girl. At 16 weeks, Judith arrived unannounced at our home with several large boxes. "Family heirlooms," she explained, brushing past me into the living room. "For the nursery." Inside the boxes were antique baby clothes, toys, and nursery decorations, all in blue, all emblazoned with Cunningham monograms, and all clearly meant for a boy. "These have been passed down for generations," she said proudly, holding up a tiny blue sailor suit. "Every Cunningham heir has worn this for his christening." "Judith," I said carefully, "we don't know the gender yet, and even if it's a boy, we might want to choose our own christening outfit." She looked at me as if I'd suggested painting the nursery black. "This isn't about personal preference, Hortense. This is about tradition, about legacy." When I mentioned the incident to Michael that evening, he sighed. "Just humour her for now. Once the baby comes, we'll do things our way." But Judith's behaviour only intensified. She began showing up at my doctor appointments without invitation, insisting that she had valuable family medical history to share with my obstetrician. She cornered the doctor in the hallway, once asking about genetic testing for sex-linked traits. She brought over volumes of Cunningham family medical records focusing exclusively on the men. "Heart disease runs in the male line," she explained, "and the Cunningham men tend toward high blood pressure in their 40s. You'll need to watch for that." When I tried to discuss my own family's medical history, my grandmother's struggle with diabetes, my cousin's asthma, she waved it away. "Let's focus on what's relevant to the baby," she said dismissively. By 20 weeks, tensions were running high. Michael continued to downplay his mother's behaviour. "She's just excited about her first grandchild," he insisted. "Mom can be intense, but her heart is in the right place." I wasn't so sure. My best friend Emma, who had witnessed Judith's behaviour at a baby shower planning meeting, pulled me aside afterward. "Hortense, this isn't normal," she said bluntly. "The way she talks about this baby. It's like she only cares about it if it's a boy. and the way she dismisses you. It's like she sees you as nothing but an incubator for the next Cunningham heir. She's old-fashioned. I defended weakly, though Emma's words echoed my own unspoken fears. Old-fashioned is expecting thank you notes and proper table manners. This is obsessive and potentially harmful. You need to set boundaries before the baby arrives. I knew Emma was right, but confrontation has never been my strong suit, and Michael was so eager to keep the peace, so convinced that everything would work itself out. With our 20-week anatomy scan approaching, the appointment where we would likely learn the baby's gender, I felt a growing sense of dread. My parents noticed the change in my demeanour during our weekly phone calls. "You don't sound like yourself, honey," my mum said. "Is everything okay with the pregnancy?" I broke down and told them about Judith's behaviour, the pressure I felt, the fear that she would be disappointed if we had a girl. My father, never one to mince words, was outraged. "That woman needs to get her priorities straight. Boy or girl, this baby is a blessing." My mother was more measured but equally concerned. "Have you and Michael discussed how you'll handle this if the baby is a girl?" We hadn't. Somehow, despite Judith's obvious preference, we'd never directly addressed the possibility. I think part of me was avoiding the conversation, hoping that if the baby was a boy, the whole issue would resolve itself. It wasn't that I wanted a boy over a girl. I truly had no preference. But I feared the fallout if our child didn't meet Judith's expectations. The day before our anatomy scan, Judith called to announce she was planning a gender reveal party for the following weekend. "Isn't it customary for the parents to plan that?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Well, yes, but you've been so busy with work, and these things require attention to detail. I've already ordered decorations and catering, blue-themed of course, since we're all expecting a boy." "But what if it's a girl?" I finally asked the question that had been hanging between us for months. There was a long pause on the line. "The Cunninghams have a strong male line," she said finally. "I wouldn't worry about that." The next day, Michael and I went to our appointment. As the technician moved the wand over my growing belly, I held my breath. Part of me was excited to see our baby, to confirm that everything was developing normally, but another part dreaded what we might learn. "Would you like to know the gender?" the technician asked, smiling. Michael squeezed my hand. "Yes, we would." The technician pointed to the screen. "Congratulations, you're having a healthy baby girl. A daughter." We were having a daughter. Joy bloomed in my chest as I imagined a little girl with Michael's kind eyes and curious nature. I turned to share the moment with my husband and saw that his eyes were wet with tears. "A little girl," he whispered, kissing my forehead. "Our daughter." In that perfect moment, I almost forgot about Judith. Almost. The gender reveal party became a point of contention between Michael and me. I wanted to cancel it entirely, knowing that Judith had already decorated for a boy, but he insisted we go through with it. "Mom's put a lot of effort into this," he argued. "And besides, she needs to accept the reality sooner rather than later. Seeing the pink confetti might help make it real for her." I wasn't convinced, but I relented. The party was scheduled for that Saturday at our home. Judith arrived 3 hours early with bags of decorations, all in blue. Blue balloons, blue streamers, blue paper plates with "It's a boy" printed in bold letters. "Judith," I said carefully as she hung a banner reading "Welcome Little Mister" above our fireplace. "You know there's a 50% chance the baby is a girl, right? Maybe we should have some pink decorations as well, just in case." She scoffed. "Cunninghams have boys. 7 generations of firstborn sons. The odds are in our favour." Michael, who was setting up chairs in the backyard, overheard and frowned. "Mum, we should be prepared either way. The doctor already told us the gender, and we're just sharing it with everyone today." Judith froze. "You already know. Why wasn't I informed immediately?" "We wanted everyone to find out together," I explained. "That's the whole point of a gender reveal." She studied my face intently, as if trying to read the answer in my expression. After a moment, she nodded stiffly and continued hanging decorations, though I noticed she worked with less enthusiasm than before. Guests began arriving at 2 o'clock. My parents came first, bringing a gender-neutral gift wrapped in yellow paper. Emma and her husband brought a homemade cake decorated half in pink and half in blue. Michael's colleagues from school arrived with gift cards and advice about sleep training. The backyard filled with conversation and laughter. Judith stood apart, surveying the gathering with tight lips. She had changed into a blue dress for the occasion and wore sapphire earrings that had belonged to Michael's grandmother. "Family jewels," she'd told me once, "for the mother of the Cunningham heir." Robert, by contrast, seemed relaxed and happy. He chatted amiably with my father about their shared interest in woodworking and promised to help set up the nursery regardless of the baby's gender. Pink or blue, I can still build a solid bookshelf, he laughed. At 3 o'clock, Michael called for everyone's attention. We stood together beside a large black balloon filled with coloured confetti. The plan was simple. We would pop the balloon, revealing either pink or blue confetti, and officially announce our baby's gender to our friends and family. Ready? Michael asked, handing me a pen. We counted down together. 3, 2, 1. I popped the balloon and a shower of pink confetti rained down around us. It's a girl, we announced together, and the yard erupted in cheers and applause. I looked immediately to Judith. Her face had gone completely blank, all colour draining from her cheeks. As our friends surged forward to congratulate us, I saw her turn to Robert and whisper something. I couldn't hear the words over the celebration, but I could read her lips clearly enough. She's just a surrogate then. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood frozen as pink confetti settled in my hair and on my shoulders, the joy of the moment evaporating instantly. Robert looked uncomfortable and murmured something back to her, but she had already turned away, moving mechanically toward the food table. The party continued around me as I struggled to process what I'd seen. My parents, noticing my distress, did their best to maintain a festive atmosphere, encouraging guests to share name suggestions and parenting advice. Emma stayed close by my side, shooting concerned glances in my direction. Michael, oblivious to what had transpired, was accepting congratulations and discussing potential names with his colleagues. "We're thinking of Eliza," he told everyone proudly. After my grandmother, Judith left the party early, claiming a migraine. She didn't say goodbye to me or acknowledge the gender announcement in any way. As she left, I caught her removing her sapphire earrings and dropping them into her purse. After the last guest departed, I finally broke down telling Michael what his mother had said. "You must have misheard," he insisted. "Mum wouldn't say something like that." "I know what I saw, Michael. She called me a surrogate. Like my only value was to produce a male heir, and since I'm having a girl, I've failed." Michael ran a hand through his hair, a gesture he made when stressed. "She's disappointed, sure. She had her heart set on a grandson, but she'll come around once she meets our daughter." I wanted to believe him, but the image of Judith's cold eyes and the words, "just a surrogate," kept replaying in my mind. Something had fundamentally changed that day, and I feared our family would never be the same. The week following the gender reveal was eerily quiet. Judith didn't call or visit, which was unusual given her previous constant presence in our lives. Michael reached out to her several times, but reported that their conversations were brief and strained. "She's just processing," he assured me. "Mum's always been big on family tradition, and this is a change for her." I wasn't convinced. "Michael," she looked at me like I'd failed some kind of test, like I'd personally disappointed her by having a girl. "That's not fair, Hortense. Mum can be traditional, but she's not a monster. She'll love our daughter once she meets her." I wanted to believe him, but a knot of anxiety had formed in my stomach and refused to dissolve. I found myself dreading Judith's inevitable return to our lives, wondering what fresh criticism she would bring. I didn't have to wonder long. 10 days after the gender reveal, Judith arrived at our house unannounced, carrying a stack of glossy medical brochures. Michael was still at the school for a faculty meeting, and I was home alone folding laundry in the living room. "Hortense," she said briskly, not bothering with pleasantries. "I've been doing some research." She spread the brochures across our coffee table. I picked one up and felt my blood run cold. "Gender Selection Techniques for Your Next Pregnancy," the title read. "What is this?" I asked, though I knew perfectly well. "Options," Judith replied, sitting primly on our sofa. "For next time. There are several clinics that specialize in helping families balance their gender distribution. One in Colorado has a 93% success rate for male selection." I set the brochure down carefully, trying to control my rising anger. "Judith, I'm 5 months pregnant with your granddaughter. Don't you think it's a bit premature to be planning our next child?" She waved a dismissive hand. "The Cunningham name has been passed down through males for 7 generations. We can't let it die out now. Of course you'll need to recover from this pregnancy, but I've already spoken with a fertility specialist who says you could begin the selection process as early as 6 months postpartum." "This pregnancy," I repeated, my voice shaking slightly. "You mean my daughter? Your granddaughter?" Judith had the grace to look momentarily abashed. "Yes, of course. This little girl will be a welcome addition to the family. But the Cunningham legacy must continue. And what if we decide not to have another child? Or what if we have another girl?" She stared at me as if I'd suggested something truly outrageous. "That's not an option, Hortense. The Cunningham line must continue. Surely Michael has explained the importance of family legacy to you. Family legacy is about more than just a name, I countered. It's about values, about love, about the kind of people we raise our children to be. Judith's expression hardened. That's a very common way of looking at it. I suppose that's to be expected given your background. But the Cunningham name represents centuries of achievement and respectability. That doesn't happen by accident. It requires planning and purpose. The conversation deteriorated from there. Judith brought out a copy of the Cunningham family tree, pointing out the unbroken male lineage and emphasizing how important it was to maintain that tradition. She referred to our daughter as this one, rather than by name, or even as the baby, further reinforcing the impression that she saw our child as somehow less valuable because of her gender. When I tried to explain how hurtful her attitude was, she dismissed my concerns as hormonal sensitivity and suggested that my common upbringing made it difficult for me to understand the importance of family heritage. By the time she left, my blood pressure was so elevated that I could feel my pulse pounding in my temples. At my next prenatal appointment, my doctor noted the increase with concern. "Stress isn't good for you or the baby," she warned. "Is everything okay at home?" I broke down and told her about the situation with Judith. My doctor was sympathetic but firm. "You need to prioritize your health and your baby's health," she advised. "That might mean limiting contact with people who cause you stress, even family members." I knew she was right, but Michael was still struggling to see the severity of the situation. When I told him about Judith's visit and the gender selection brochures, he was embarrassed, but still tried to minimize her behavior. "She's from a different generation," he said weakly, "and she doesn't always express herself well. I'm sure she didn't mean to upset you. She called our daughter this one Michael. She's already planning our next pregnancy before this baby is even born. This isn't normal behavior. I'll talk to her," he promised. "Make it clear that we won't tolerate any disrespect toward our daughter." But his talk with Judith seemed to have little effect. While she stopped bringing gender selection brochures, her behavior toward me grew increasingly cold. She began returning gifts she had previously purchased for the nursery, explaining that they were inappropriate for a girl. The antique silver rattle, the hand-carved wooden train set the vintage compass. All disappeared back into her possession. "These are Cunningham family heirlooms," she explained when Michael questioned her. "They're meant for the Cunningham heir." My parents noticed the strain during a Sunday dinner where both families were present. My mother found me crying in the kitchen after Judith had spent 20 minutes describing how beautiful Michael had been as a baby, with the strong Cunningham jawline that all the men in the family inherit. "Sweetheart," my mum said gently, wiping my tears with her napkin, "this isn't right. That woman is making you miserable during what should be the happiest time of your life." "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "Michael keeps saying she'll change once the baby is born, but what if she doesn't? What if she treats our daughter as less than her whole life?" "Then you'll protect your child," my mother said firmly, "the way I would protect you if anyone tried to make you feel less valuable because of something you can't control." Her words stayed with me, strengthening my resolve to stand up for my daughter even if it meant confronting Judith more directly. Little did I know that opportunity would come sooner than I expected. I was 7 months pregnant when Judith pushed me to my breaking point. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, and I was home alone organizing the nursery. We had painted the walls a soft sage green, gender-neutral but soothing, and assembled the white crib that my father had lovingly restored from my own childhood. The room was coming together beautifully filled with books, stuffed animals, and handmade blankets from friends and family. The doorbell rang, interrupting my work. I opened the door to find Judith standing there with Robert's SUV parked in our driveway. The back was open, revealing several large boxes. "I need to collect some things," she announced, brushing past me into the house. "Robert can help carry the heavier items." "What things?" I asked, following her as she marched purposefully toward the nursery. "Family heirlooms," she replied briskly. "They need to be properly stored until they're needed." I watched in disbelief as she entered the nursery and began examining the items we had so carefully arranged. She picked up a silver-framed photograph of Michael as a baby and placed it in a box she had brought with her. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "That's for our daughter's room." Judith straightened, fixing me with a cold stare. "These items are for the real Cunningham heir when you have him. They're not appropriate for this situation." My hands began to shake. "This situation, you mean my daughter? Your granddaughter." "A granddaughter who won't carry on the Cunningham name," she replied dismissively. "These heirlooms are meant to be passed down through the male line. They've been in the family for generations." She continued moving through the room, selecting items to remove. The antique rocking horse that had been restored for our baby, the hand-embroidered quilt that had been made for Michael's birth, the collection of classic children's books with the Cunningham bookplate inside each cover. These belong to the Cunningham heir, she repeated, her voice taking on a rehearsed quality. When you have a son, they'll be his. Something inside me snapped. The accumulated stress, hurt, and anger of the past months crystallized into a single clarifying moment of rage. Stop! I said, my voice low and dangerous. Put those things down and listen to me. Judith looked up, surprised by my tone. Excuse me. I said stop. You don't get to come into my home, into my daughter's nursery, and take things we've been given for her. These weren't given to her, Judith countered. They were given to the Cunningham heir. It's not my fault you failed to provide one. The words hung in the air between us, ugly and undeniable. There it was, the truth I'd suspected all along. In Judith's eyes, I had one job: to produce a male heir for the Cunningham line, and I had failed. Failed, I repeated, my voice shaking with emotion. Is that what you think I've done by carrying this child and failed? Don't be so dramatic, Hortense. I simply meant that the Cunningham name needs to continue. You're young, you can try again, many women do. Try again, like breeding livestock. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. My daughter isn't a disappointment or a failure. She's a blessing, a miracle. And if you can't see that, then that's your failure, not mine. Judith's face hardened. You don't understand our family traditions. You're not a Cunningham by blood. You're just a surrogate for the real heir we need. There it was again, that word, surrogate. As if my only value was in my ability to produce what she wanted. As if my daughter's only value was in her gender. My hands shook violently now, and I could feel my heart racing in my chest. The baby kicked furiously, as if sensing my distress. I placed a protective hand over my belly and took a deep breath. Get out, I said quietly. Judith blinked in surprise. Excuse me. Get out of my house. My voice grew stronger with each word. Now, take your boxes and your outdated ideas about family and get out. You can't speak to me that way. I'm Michael's mother. And I'm Michael's wife and the mother of his child, his daughter. If you can't respect that, if you can't value my daughter for who she is, rather than what she isn't, then you are not welcome in our home. Judith's face flushed with anger. You're being hysterical. This is exactly why women shouldn't make important family decisions. You're too emotional. I stood up straighter, one hand still protectively cradling my belly. I'm not being emotional, I'm being clear. You've made your position obvious from the beginning. You don't see me as part of this family. You don't see my daughter as worthy of the Cunningham name, and I refuse to raise my child in an environment where she's considered less than before she's even born. This is ridiculous, Judith sputtered. Robert, come help me with these boxes. No one is taking anything from this nursery, I said firmly. Everything here belongs to my daughter. If you want to be part of her life, you'll need to accept her exactly as she is. Not as a disappointment, not as a placeholder, until a boy comes along, but as a valued, loved, complete person. Tears filled Judith's eyes, but they seemed more from frustration than genuine emotion. You have no right to keep me from my grandchild. I have every right to protect my daughter from people who don't value her, I countered, even if that person is her grandmother. We were interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Michael called out, Hortense, Mum, what's going on? He appeared in the doorway of the nursery, taking in the scene with confusion. His mother standing amid half-packed boxes, me visibly shaking with emotion. Michael, Judith said immediately, her voice taking on a wounded tone. Your wife is being completely unreasonable. I simply came to collect some family heirlooms for safekeeping. She came to take away our daughter's things, I corrected. Because apparently a girl isn't worthy of the precious Cunningham heritage. Michael looked between us, his expression troubled. Mum, is that true? Don't be ridiculous. I'm simply preserving family traditions. Traditions that have been in place for generations before Hortense came along with her modern ideas. I turned to my husband, suddenly calm in the face of this crucial moment. Michael, your mother called me just a surrogate. She said I failed because I'm having a girl. She's planning our next pregnancy before this baby is even born, because apparently this child doesn't count. Michael's face paled. Mom, did you really say those things? Judith faltered, perhaps realizing she'd gone too far. Not in those exact words. Hortense is exaggerating because she's hormonal. I know what I heard, I said firmly, And I know what I just experienced. Your mother came here to remove things from our daughter's nursery because she doesn't think a girl deserves them. Can I learn? Michael turned to his mother, his expression hardening. Is that true? Are you taking things out of my daughter's nursery? They're family heirlooms, Michael, meant for the Cunningham heir. My daughter is a Cunningham, Michael said, his voice unusually stern, and she is my heir regardless of her gender. Judith looked genuinely shocked. But the family name will continue or not based on choices my daughter makes as an adult, Michael finished for her. And those choices will be hers alone, not dictated by some outdated notion of family legacy. He moved to stand beside me, placing his arm around my shoulders. Mom, I think you should leave now. We can talk about this when everyone's calmer, but I want to be very clear. Hortense and our daughter are my family, my priority. If you can't accept that, then we have a serious problem. Tears spilled down Judith's cheeks. You would choose her over your own mother, over centuries of family tradition. This isn't about choosing sides, Michael replied. This is about respect. Respect for my wife, respect for my child, and respect for our family unit. If you can't offer that respect, then yes, I choose them. Judith's expression hardened. Your father will hear about this. Don't think this won't have consequences, Michael. The family investments, the trust fund, all of it is contingent on maintaining certain standards. Are you threatening to disinherit me because I'm having a daughter? Michael asked incredulously. I'm reminding you of your responsibilities to this family, Judith replied coldly. Responsibilities that apparently matter less to you than they should. Get out, I said again, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. And don't come back until you're ready to apologize and to treat our daughter with the love and respect she deserves. For a moment, I thought Judith might continue arguing, but something in our united stance must have convinced her that she'd lost this battle. She gathered her purse, leaving the empty boxes behind. This isn't over, she said as she reached the door. You'll realize I'm right eventually. The Cunningham name matters. Legacy matters. Love matters more, I replied simply. And our daughter will have plenty of that, with or without your approval. After Judith left, Michael and I stood in silence for a long moment. I waited for him to speak, uncertain whether he regretted taking such a firm stand against his mother. Finally, he pulled me into a gentle embrace, careful of my pregnant belly between us. I'm so sorry, he whispered against my hair. I had no idea it had gotten this bad. I should have protected you better. I clung to him, relief washing over me in waves. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. As we stood together in our daughter's nursery, I felt the baby kick vigorously as if applauding our united front. For the first time in months, I felt truly hopeful about our future as a family. The confrontation with Judith marked a turning point in our marriage and in Michael's relationship with his parents. The immediate aftermath was painful but necessary, a period of reflection and difficult conversations that would ultimately strengthen our family bonds. That evening, after ensuring I was comfortably resting on the sofa with a cup of herbal tea, Michael retreated to his home office. He emerged 2 hours later with a lengthy letter he had written to his parents. He read it aloud to me, his voice occasionally catching with emotion. I need you to understand that my primary loyalty now is to Hortense and our daughter, he had written. The way you've treated my wife during her pregnancy is unacceptable and has caused her significant distress. This stops now. If you cannot embrace our daughter fully and treat Hortense with the respect she deserves as my wife and the mother of my child, then we will need to limit our contact with you. The letter went on to outline specific boundaries. No more unannounced visits, no more comments about trying again for a boy, no more references to family traditions that excluded or devalued our daughter. It was firm but fair, making clear that the door remained open if they could adjust their behavior. Is it too harsh? Michael asked after finishing. I shook my head. It's honest and necessary. Our daughter deserves to grow up surrounded by people who value her completely. Michael mailed the letter the next morning. 3 days of silence followed, during which Michael was visibly anxious but committed to our position. On the 4th day, there was a knock at our door. It was Robert alone. May I come in? He asked quietly. I'd like to speak with both of you. We sat in the living room, an uncomfortable silence hanging between us until Robert cleared his throat. I owe you both an apology, he began. I've known for years that Judith's fixation on the Cunningham name and legacy was excessive, but I've always found it easier to go along than to confront her. That was cowardice on my part, and you're both paying the price for it now. He looked directly at me. Hortense, what Judith said to you was inexcusable. You're not a surrogate. You're a member of our family and the mother of our grandchild. I should have stepped in long ago when I saw how she was treating you." His sincerity was evident, and I felt some of the tension leave my body. "Thank you, Robert. That means a lot to me." "There's something you both should know," Robert continued, his gaze shifting to Michael. "Something that might help explain, though not excuse, your mother's behavior." He took a deep breath. "We had another child before you, Michael, a daughter, Elizabeth. She was born with a congenital heart defect and died when she was 3 years old." Michael looked stunned. "I never knew I had a sister." Robert nodded sadly. "Judith couldn't bear to talk about her after we lost her. It was as if she decided that daughters were too painful, too fragile. When you were born a year later, she poured all her grief and love into you, her son, her safe child. And over time, that transformed into this fixation on male heirs and family legacy. That's terrible," I said softly. "I had no idea." "It doesn't excuse how she's treated you," Robert emphasized, "but I thought it might help you understand. Judith isn't just being stubborn or traditional. In her mind, she's protecting herself from another devastating loss." The revelation cast Judith's behavior in a new light. Still unacceptable, but suddenly more complex and tragic than simple snobbery or traditionalism. "Is Mom getting help?" Michael asked. "Professional help, I mean." Robert sighed. "She's agreed to see someone. Your letter, it hit her hard. I don't think she realized how her behavior was affecting you both. She's embarrassed and defensive right now, but I believe she'll come around. She doesn't want to lose you, Michael, or her granddaughter. We don't want to cut her out," I assured him. "We just need her to respect our boundaries and accept our daughter for who she is." "I understand," Robert said, "and I support you both. In the meantime, I'd like to be involved in my granddaughter's life if you'll allow it. I've already missed out on one granddaughter. I don't want to miss another." From that day forward, Robert became a regular and welcome presence in our lives. He helped Michael paint the nursery, built a beautiful bookshelf for our daughter's growing collection of books, and even attended a few birthing classes with us when Michael couldn't make it due to work commitments. Judith remained distant at first, sending occasional text messages to Michael, but making no attempt to contact me directly. According to Robert, she was seeing a therapist twice weekly and slowly beginning to process the grief she had suppressed for decades. As my pregnancy progressed, my health improved, now that the stress of dealing with Judith had been reduced. My blood pressure normalized and I gained healthy weight. My doctor commented on the positive change at my 32-week appointment. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up," she advised. "You and baby are doing beautifully now." With the cloud of Judith's disapproval lifted, I was able to fully embrace the joy of preparing for our daughter's arrival. My mother flew in for a week to help organize the nursery. Emma and my teaching colleagues threw a beautiful baby shower where the color pink was celebrated rather than mourned. Michael and I attended birthing classes together, laughing through the awkward exercises and growing more excited with each passing week. We chose the name Eliza Grace, Eliza after Michael's sister, though we didn't tell Judith this yet, and Grace for my grandmother. It felt right to honor both sides of our family, to weave together our histories into something new and beautiful. "Eliza Cunningham," Michael would whisper to my belly at night. "We can't wait to meet you." As my due date approached, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced since the early days of my pregnancy. Whatever happened with Judith, I knew that Michael and I were united in our commitment to each other and to our daughter. We had drawn a line in the sand and stood firm together. That knowledge gave me strength for the challenges ahead. Eliza Grace Cunningham decided to make her entrance into the world 2 weeks early on a stormy night in June. My water broke at 3 a.m, jolting me from a deep sleep. "Michael," I gasped, shaking his shoulder. "It's time." He was instantly alert, jumping out of bed and grabbing the hospital bag we'd packed weeks earlier. "Are you having contractions? How far apart are they? Should I call the doctor now or wait?" Despite the pain beginning to radiate through my lower back, I couldn't help smiling at his panic. "Take a breath, honey. First babies usually take their time. Let's time the contractions before we leave." I was wrong about Eliza taking her time. By the time we reached the hospital 30 minutes later, my contractions were coming every 4 minutes and increasing in intensity. The nurse who checked me looked surprised. "You're already 6 centimeters dilated," she announced. "This little one is in a hurry to meet you." The next few hours passed in a blur of pain-focused breathing and Michael's steady presence by my side. He held my hand through each contraction, wiped my forehead with cool cloths, and advocated for me when I was too exhausted to speak for myself. "You're doing amazingly," he kept saying. "You're the strongest person I know." At 11:42 that morning, after just 8 hours of labor, Eliza Grace entered the world with a powerful cry that immediately brought tears to my eyes. The doctor placed her on my chest, and I felt a love so overwhelming it took my breath away. "She's perfect," Michael whispered, his voice thick with emotion as he counted her tiny fingers and toes. "Absolutely perfect." Eliza had Michael's dark hair and my green eyes. Her tiny face was scrunched in concentration as she took in the bright, noisy world around her. When she wrapped her hand around Michael's finger, his composure finally broke, and he sobbed openly. "Hello, Eliza," he said through his tears. "I'm your dad, and I'm going to love you and protect you for the rest of my life." I can. In that sacred moment, all the drama with Judith seemed distant and unimportant. What mattered was this tiny human we had created, this perfect blend of both of us, who had already captured our hearts completely. The hours after Eliza's birth were filled with visitors. My parents arrived first, my mother crying happy tears as she held her granddaughter for the first time. My father, usually so stoic, was openly emotional, his large hands looking enormous as he gently cradled Eliza's head. "She's got your spirit in her eyes," he told me proudly, "strong like her mama." Emma came bearing a handmade mobile for the nursery, delicate paper birds in shades of pink and green that would dance above Eliza's crib. My colleagues from school sent flowers and a collection of children's books, each inscribed with messages of love for our new arrival. To my surprise, Robert came alone that evening, carrying a small gift bag and looking nervous. "Is it okay if I meet my granddaughter?" he asked hesitantly from the doorway. "Of course," I said warmly. "Come in. She's awake right now." Robert approached the bassinet with reverence, peering down at Eliza with wonder in his eyes. "May I hold her?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Michael carefully transferred Eliza into his father's arms, showing him how to support her head. Robert cradled her with surprising skill, gazing into her tiny face with undisguised adoration. "Hello, little one," he murmured. "I'm your grandpa." His voice caught on the word, and he looked up at us with tear-filled eyes. "Thank you for letting me be here." He stayed for nearly an hour, talking softly to Eliza and asking thoughtful questions about the birth and our plans for the coming weeks. Before leaving, he handed me the gift bag. "This is from both of us," he said. "Judith wanted me to give it to you." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet sized for an infant's wrist. The tag attached read, "For Eliza," in Judith's elegant handwriting. "It was Elizabeth's," Robert explained quietly. "Judith has kept it all these years." The gesture moved me deeply. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was an acknowledgement, a tentative reaching out from a wounded woman who had allowed her pain to overshadow her capacity for love. "Thank her for us," I said, squeezing Robert's hand. "And tell her that when we're settled at home, she's welcome to visit her granddaughter if she'd like." Robert nodded, visibly relieved. "I will. She's trying, Hortense. In her own way, she's trying." We brought Eliza home 2 days later to the nursery we had so lovingly prepared for her. The sage green walls and white furniture created a peaceful haven, and the bookshelves Robert had built were already filled with stories waiting to be read. It felt right, complete, like the home our daughter deserved. The first weeks of Eliza's life passed in the typical newborn haze of sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the indescribable joy of watching our daughter discover the world. Michael took a month of paternity leave, becoming an expert at swaddling and learning to interpret each of Eliza's cries. 3 weeks after Eliza's birth, there was a tentative knock at our door. Michael opened it to find his mother standing on the porch holding a bouquet of pink roses and looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Is it a good time?" she asked softly. "I'd like to meet my granddaughter if that's okay." Michael looked to me for guidance. I nodded, adjusting Eliza in my arms. Judith entered cautiously, her eyes immediately drawn to the baby. "She's beautiful," she breathed, her composure cracking slightly. "She looks like you did as a baby, Michael. Would you like to hold her?" I offered. Judith nodded, setting down her purse and the flowers. I carefully transferred Eliza into her arms, watching as my mother-in-law's rigid posture softened instantly. "Hello, Eliza," she whispered. "I'm your grandmother." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she gazed at our daughter. "I'm sorry it took me so long to meet you." The apology wasn't directed at Eliza alone, and I understood the meaning behind her words. It wasn't a complete reconciliation. That would take time and effort from all of us. But it was a beginning, Over the following months, Judith made genuine efforts to repair the damage her behaviour had caused. She attended therapy regularly, joined a support group for parents who had lost children, and slowly opened up about Elizabeth to Michael. She respected our boundaries, always calling before visiting and never making comments about trying again or the Cunningham legacy. Her relationship with Eliza blossomed naturally. Despite her initial fixation on having a grandson, Judith seemed to find healing in her relationship with her granddaughter. She brought over photo albums of Michael's childhood, sharing stories and building connections between past and present. 2 years have passed since that confrontation in our nursery. Eliza is now a vibrant toddler with a strong will and a joyful spirit. She has her father's curiosity and, according to my mother, my determination. She loves books, building blocks, and splashing in puddles after rain. Judith has become a doting grandmother, though our relationship remains a work in progress. There are still moments of tension, still occasional comments that make me bristle, but there is also growth and genuine effort on both sides. The most healing moment came on Eliza's 2nd birthday. After the party, as guests were leaving, Judith pulled me aside. "I need to say something that's long overdue," she said, her voice steady but vulnerable. "I'm truly sorry for how I treated you during your pregnancy. You were never just a surrogate. You're an extraordinary mother and the perfect partner for my son. And Eliza," she looked across the room to where our daughter was playing with her father, "Eliza is the greatest gift our family could have received. I don't know if Judith and I will ever be close in the way I might have hoped when I first married Michael. Too much has happened between us, too many wounds that are still healing. But we have found a way forward based on mutual respect and our shared love for Michael and Eliza. As for me, I learned something vital through this experience, the importance of finding my voice and standing firm in defense of myself and those I love. That moment when I demanded Judith leave my house was terrifying, but it was also empowering. It changed the course of our family's story, opening the possibility for healing that might never have come otherwise. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is draw a clear boundary and refuse to accept treatment that diminishes our worth or the worth of those we love. It isn't easy, especially with family, but it is necessary. And in that difficult space of confrontation and truth-telling, real growth becomes possible. Have you ever had to stand up to a family member who couldn't see your worth? How did you find the courage to set boundaries? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Don't forget to share with someone who might need to be reminded of their own worth today. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are never just anything. You are whole, worthy, and deserving of respect exactly as you are.